Dear students, good morning. Welcome to Law Excellence IAS. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 11th August 2020. The first article for discussion is Isolating China as Proposition and the Reality. This article is by Mr. Narayanan. It talks about the proposition of isolating China from the rest of the world. But before getting into the article, we need to know certain facts or acknowledge certain facts. Today, China is an economic powerhouse of the world. You know that China is called as the factory of the world due to its manufacturing might, and India is called as the back office due to its might in services sector. Now, many of the countries got so deeply intertwined with China, they are not seeing a possibility of getting out of the relations with China. Second, China has border disputes with more than half a dozen countries, including countries such as Russia. So, if we see with Japan and with Southeast Asian countries, with India, it has got many border disputes. And Chinese imperialist mindset is known from the days of our independence. So, clearly, either Mao's days, after the Deng days, and today, whatever Xi Jinping days, though they may claim something on outside, but in their intentions, the imperialistic tendencies are very clear. During the Deng era, he has voluntarily kept the assertiveness of the China very low for building an economic might of the China. You might recall his words like this: hide your strength, bide your time, never claim leadership. So it means we shall claim the leadership only when the time is right, not during the inappropriate times or during the times of our weakness. That is what is Deng. During the Deng era itself, Rajiv Gandhi, Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi visited China after 1962 war, and also Mr. Nixon established relations with China, which is called ping pong diplomacy. Next, coming to India and China and China's actions in our neighborhood, you know that China is making a strong inroads into our neighborhood. What are the instruments of China? One is infrastructure and the second is aid. Recently, Bangladesh was offered a liberal aid of $10 billion. So, recently, a foreign ministers meeting, foreign ministers of China, Nepal, Afghanistan, and Pakistan was held. In this meeting, it was finalized or proposed to build trans-Himalayan multi-dimensional connectivity network and also to expand China-Pakistan economic corridor to Afghanistan. And the next is coming to Iran. Iran is in second thoughts to go with India on Chabahar port. The reason it cites is Indian delays. Now, China is ready to invest in Iran and grab this opportunity on Chabahar port. India states this as a debt trap diplomacy, but in reality, many of the countries are willing to go forward with China. We need to acknowledge that particular factor. Now, in spite of having differences, no country is openly coming forward to sever ties with China. Let us see certain examples here. Australia, it's a member of Quad. You know that a democratic grouping has come against China. What is that? India, Japan, US, and Australia. So, Australia, though being a member of Quad, it did not oppose China, though it has criticized China on COVID-19. When China has cut off its imports of beef, immediately it has fallen in line. So, second, UK clearly stated itself in the parliament that it wants to have a positive relationship with China. Let us go to Southeast Asian countries. You know, Vietnam, Philippines have disputes in South China Sea with China. In spite of these differences, they are doing trade and maintaining the relationships with China. So this all shows that one point, the geo balancing, remember the word geo balancing, is not working in China's disadvantage. Economic ties today are much stronger than military and strategic ties. India has to keep this in mind while planning its future or engaging with China. This is what author is emphasizing. The next article is the main bricks to use in India's steel frame. What is India's steel frame? It is Indian Civil Services. So in this context, Mr. Raghavan, decorated former CBI director, analyzes Indian civil services. He says it is fiercely competitive. People entering into civil services are from the different sections of Indian society. In a way, the diversity of Indian society, class and caste structure of Indian society is reflected in the civil services, and it is for good. And he advises the new civil servants to have honesty and also compassion towards the poor to make this service relevant. The next is hospitals afire. It is about recent fire accidents in Vijayawada and in Ahmedabad in COVID-19 treatment centers. What are the reasons for those frequent fire accidents? If you can remember, a fire accident also happened long back in West Bengal hospital. First is lack of oversight mechanism. Across the municipal administration, business as usual approach is happening in awarding permissions to the buildings. No fire safety norms are being followed. Second, governments are trying to shift the blame towards the management of the hospitals. But in reality, it is the government failure to promote regulation and to ensure proper adherence to the norms. So corruption in the municipal administration is cited as a reason. Here we need to take an example of Supreme Court's words. In Upahar case, Supreme Court has clearly criticized Home Ministry, Central Home Ministry, for buck-passing the responsibility of fire accidents to the management of the cinema hall. So in this case, what is the way forward? We have to ensure that the National Building Code is properly followed in all the states. And second, the regularization of illegal constructions for generating the revenues to the state government, it has to be stopped with immediate effect. The next, misplaced priority. This is about COVID-19 management. Many of the state governments are interested in managing the data to report the less number of cases from their respective states. What is required here is to represent the facts, to identify the cases through testing, and then isolating them, treating the patients. These are the things we need to follow. Now, many of the states have left tracing out of their scope of the things. So testing, isolation, and tracing. These three has to go hand in hand to effectively manage COVID-19. The next article is about shortfalls in GST collection. We need to know certain facts to understand this article better. Before GST, we had excise duties. These are the taxes imposed on manufacturing. So, the manufacturing states used to get lot of revenue. Now, GST is a destination-based tax. It means that the tax is collected where the good is sold rather than where the good is manufactured. So obviously manufacturing states are going to lose in the GST regime. And the second is, many of the states were also apprehensive about GST that it may take away their revenues and they may also lose autonomy on imposing the taxes. In this context, Center has come up with certain assurances. The assurance is compensation, cess and compensation fund. So what is this compensation fund? So Center will compensate for the loss-making states for the next 5 years. How the loss is calculated? So the tax revenue growth rate will be estimated at 14% per year. And then the deficiency on this will be paid by the center. For this center, what it did, it has constituted a compensation cess fund, and also compensation cess is being levied on the people. Now, COVID-19 has come up. The revenues of the center and the states are falling drastically. In this context, the center is not in a position to pay the money to them. and 14%, which is calculated as annual revenue growth rate, also appears to be an exorbitant thing. So many states are today complaining that center is not releasing the compensation money on time. Recently, Kerala also made a criticism. We saw it on the 7th article or August 7th article. So, what is the way forward over here? So, first is the better is to index the tax revenue growth to GDP growth rate and also to the inflation in that particular state. And second is GST council shall be used as a medium to negotiate with the states and to readjust the compensation. That is what is the way forward the author is talking. The next article is about suicide. Suicide is a public health challenge in India. Stigma is there on mental illness, and there is social isolation of the people once they lost jobs and also certain productive activity. And lifestyles are becoming more stressful, and there are societal indifferences to the people. All these are pushing the people towards suicide. In this context, the society is expected to be empathetic, supportive, and compassionate. But in India, the society sees mental illness as something wrong, especially depression kind of thing. And worst is, suicide is seen as a medico-legal issue rather than an issue of compassion and empathy. That's what this article emphasizes. The WHO's relevance is fading. You know that WHO has remarkably failed in curtailing the spread of COVID-19. It is purely a leadership crisis in the organization. Let us compare the management of SARS and COVID-19. Earlier director, Ms. Brundtland, she was very decisive and able to contain the spread of SARS. But today, the existing director proved to be ineffective and inefficient in curtailing both COVID-19 and Ebola. So, funding system of WHO is also appears to be a problem over here. There are the two ways how WHO gets its funds. One is through assessed contributions which various nations gives to WHO, and the next are voluntary donations that come from various philanthropic organizations. Now, assessed contributions are purely at the discretion of WHO, and voluntary contributions, these have to be spent as per the wish of the donors. Today, assessed contributions are less than 17% of its kitty, and voluntary contribution crosses 80%. So this financial mechanism also need to be corrected. The next article is related to environmental impact assessment. If I have to call some article as the article of the day, I will say it as this. Environmental impact assessment, it has got a long history in India. In 1984, there was Bhopal gas tragedy, and after that, Indian government started tightening the environmental laws in India. So Environmental Protection Act 1986 has come into existence, in which EIA is a major part. What is the meaning of this? It is an assessment to understand the damage or loss a particular project can cause to environment. So it helps us to find various alternative ways to minimize environmental damage. It has been described as participatory justice by the Supreme Court. Let us see why. If you understand the procedure, first site selection will be there. After that, a professional EIA has to be conducted, and no objection certificate has to be applied. Then it goes for public hearing. So in the public hearing, people can express their opinions who are getting affected by this particular project. After that, environmental clearance has to be applied with all these documents. Then these documents will go to an expert appraisal committee or environmental appraisal committee. Then the environmental appraisal committee has to give the clearance. If no clearance is given and changes are suggested, it has to go back again to the reconduct of environmental impact assessment. So this is what is sometimes described as environmental terrorism by few industrialists. They say that environmental impact assessment is the major reason for non-RL's inability to move forward with various developmental projects. Now, government wants to dilute these particular provisions through new draft rules enacted or which have been made in 2020. So these are just draft rules. These are put for people opinion as of now. So how they are trying to dilute environmental impact assessment, that we will see. You know that post facto clearances are being allowed in this. What are post facto clearances? Let me say, if I am building a particular factory, I can go ahead and do that without any clearances. Later I can apply for the clearances and get them as and when necessary. It means that previously, once you get the permission and clearance, then only you can start the factory. Now start the factory and get the permission later. That is how it is been stated as. Many exemptions are being provided. The worst is like this. If government declares any project as a strategic project, then no environmental impact assessment is done on that project. And government can declare any project as a strategic project. Added to that, highways, and then construction projects less than 1.5 lakh square meters, irrigation projects, linear projects on border areas, inland waterways, all these are being exempted from environmental impact assessment. Next, violations and reporting on these violations. People, public are barred from reporting any violations by that factory. Who can report it? The person violating the norms can report it, or the government official can report it. Who is the person violating the norm? It means a thief has to go and report to the police saying that I have stole these particular things. That is how the government thinking is. The public consultation system is also weakened. Previously it was 30 days when a project is kept for public opinion in public domain. But today it is reduced further to 20 days. It is also criticized as against cooperative federalism. Why? The state environment impact assessment authorities will now be appointed by the center. And Rahul Gandhi specifically criticized it as a land grab and plundering of resources. Why did he say that? Let me put it this way. If I want to expand my factory, I don't need to conduct the environmental impact assessment again. I get the automatic permissions. And everyone can apply for an expansion and take up more area of land and keep it with them for the future use. That way land grab can be a possibility. The worst can happen in the Himalayan and northeastern region. You know that 100 kilometers from the border areas, these are declared as strategic projects. It means entire northeastern biodiversity hotspots, these are within the range of 100 kilometers from the border areas. That is the reason why it is defined, or it is criticized as an unregulated rampant threat to the ecosystems. Next is vulnerability of landslides. All these are expected to increase in sensitive ecosystem of Himalayas. And Mr. Prakash Javadekar, on the other hand, what he is saying, it will improve the ease of doing business, it will bring in investments to India. These are all the things which the government is saying. The next article is Naga peace talks hit a road bump. Let us know a brief background of Naga issue. I will try to be very brief and simple for you. The Naga national movement, it has started with Naga National Council, which has declared an independence one day before India got the independence. So, Mr. Angami Fizo was the person who was heading this. Today, whatever the factions you see in Nagaland, NSCN IM, NSCN Kaplong, all these belong to are offshoots of Naga National Council. The second thing is Nagas wants to have a solution outside the constitutional framework of India, and they also demand for Greater Nagaland with the regions of Manipur and also the regions of Myanmar. Obviously, Myanmar is an international issue, and Manipur is not interested to forego any of its land. And these Nagas are intricately connected tribal groups. and there are n number of tribal groups over there. So that's why n number of different factions are also there. In this context, India started negotiations with Nagas with Mr. Padmanabhaya as the interlocutor and then Mr. Ravi as the interlocutor. When Prime Minister Modi came to power in 2014, he declared that some understanding reached between Nagas and Government of India, but it was not disclosed till date. Now, what is the problem? Mr. Ravi, who was the interlocutor before, is appointed as the governor of Nagaland. In this case, Mr. Ravi, what he stated, all the government officials have to declare that if their family members or relatives have any connections with the underground organizations. In this case, NSCN IM, Isaac and Movaya, has strong objections. What they say is they want to reduce Naga nationalist leaders as few gangsters and reduce the problem of Naga national movement as a law and order issue rather than a political issue. That's what they complain about. And remember one important fact over here. There is an ceasefire agreement which is continuing since 2001 between Government of India and these factions. Only once NSC and Kaplong faction has violated the ceasefire and attacked on Indian army. So I think it happened in 2017 or somewhere. So you need to remember these facts on this particular article. It will not be a zero academic year, official tell House panel. Many of the parents are requesting the Government of India to declare this year as a zero academic year in the fear of COVID-19. But UGC and then Government of India are not agreeing for the same. The next article is lockdown hit treatment under PMJAY. The PMJAY stands for Pradhana Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. It is a program meant to provide health insurance cover to marginalized sections of the society. Now, many of the beneficiaries who are intended to take the benefits of this Arogya Yojana are not going to hospitals today. What can be the reason? That is fear of getting infected with COVID-19 or hospitals being preoccupied with COVID-19 can be cited as the reason for this.